What is up, everybody, and welcome to FLW Videos. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about what happened with the Trapinch Community Day. If you have been following my channel for a while, you will know that if there is positive news, I will be positive. And if there's negative news, I'm not afraid to cover that, because at the end of the day, the goal is always the same thing: to try to make the game better, to try to make it a better experience for players. And unfortunately, the Trapinch Community Day just simply was not a good experience for a lot of players in Pokemon Go. So what we're going to do specifically is just kind of get a ballpark idea of what people were saying about it across the world. And then I'm actually going to give you my own experience and then kind of dive into what I think would need to change and what is actually causing this to begin with. Anyways, if you do enjoy this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the video. I actually want to go ahead and address a tweet that I sent out earlier to just kind of capture what's going on in the community. When I first logged on to Twitter, I noticed that a lot of people from Europe as well as the Asia Pacific region pretty much had the same complaints about Trapinch Community Day. Number one, there just were not increased spawns. So typically if you would see 10 Pokemon beforehand, well, during Community Day, you ended up seeing 10, so there were no increased spawn of Pokemon. And then number two, even if Pokemon were spawned, there was a very low percentage of them being Trapinch. So maybe out of 10, you might see 2, might see 3 Pokemon that would be Trapinch, when normally it would be like 6 to 7 out of 10. So we ended up seeing a couple of things kind of going on. But what is it all centered around? To be honest, I really think it has to do with them officially adjusting the spawn reshuffle that happened a couple of weeks ago. And this is the first Community Day that we ended up having after that reshuffle. So this is what Community Days would be like if nothing changes. And there's a lot of problems with it, so I anticipate that Niantic will address them. We're going to go ahead and capture just kind of what people said about this and then kind of confirm some of the suspicions, and then I'll give you my experience of Community Day. So we've got one person responding, hey, it was actually super low in Europe, like we talked about. We have a couple other people just kind of backing that up, saying that they were very irritated. So Richard, who lives in Japan, mentioned that it ended up getting canceled, but that had to do with weather actually instead. So it wasn't like a server issue or just poor performance. They were just trying to be proactive. Are we going to end up seeing increased Pokemon based on the Community Day spawns? They responded by saying, just make sure you got stable internet, GPS, go ahead and get through your neighborhoods, or a visit to a nearby park to increase your chances of encountering a Trapinch. Use a lure module, use an incense, and you should be good to go. And they responded pretty funny by saying, nope, that's not an accurate answer. That's pretty funny, but yeah. You shouldn't expect a real answer, to be honest, from them, because they're just going to have like a lot of automated ones. But this person actually had something different. They said that they got 16 shinies, so I mean, they could have had a low number of spawns, just a really good rate. I have seen some people just kind of pull this off. And then if you go ahead and scroll down, we got some more people just saying kind of the same thing from India. And then I noticed that there was one person mentioning the kind of ratios that we talked about, saying if a dozen Pokemon end up spawning on a lured location, only 2 to 3 would end up being a Trapinch, when previously it would be predominantly the Community Day Pokemon. So we're seeing this just kind of across the board. A lot of people are mentioning that there were just so many issues going on with it. And to be honest, this is not something that we end up wanting to see. So now that we've kind of captured exactly what everyone's kind of saying in the community as far as Twitter is concerned, I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about my experience. So as far as my experience for the Trapinch Community Day, it wasn't too far off from what everyone else was saying, but I did manage to capture some footage to just kind of showcase some points. So we are going to address 2 to begin with. Number 1, we've got just the number of Pokemon spawning in general, and then number 2, what is the ratio like of Trapinch to just every other Pokemon? So as far as the number of Pokemon spawning, I did end up noticing that it was dropped a little bit, at least from the last Community Day. Not so much to where it's just like blatantly obvious where you're just going, okay, something is wrong here. I would still see 6 to 7 to 8 to 9 Pokemon every time I walked into like a cluster. But previously it would be like 12, maybe 13. So I would say it was like a 25% drop. I think that that's probably a fairly accurate number. But the reason why that is such an issue really has to do with them just reshuffling the spawn. I think they're trying to standardize it to where there's just not these spots that are just super hot spots. They're kind of trying to just standardize it out a little bit and just make the experience at least a little bit more standardized. But that's just my opinion on the reshuffling aspect. So yes, I personally saw a little bit lower of a number of Pokemon spawning throughout the entire event. And then secondly, what about the ratio of Trapinches to every other Pokemon? I actually did not see a lower rate. So a lot of people mention, maybe 2 out of 12, for example, 3 out of 12. I was actually seeing a very healthy number of something like 6 out of 12. Right at like a half and half mark. You've got half just normal spawns and then half Trapinch. That was honestly not too bad, but I actually think I know the answer as to why I ended up seeing better numbers than what most people ended up seeing. And that simply has to do with the weather. I was lucky enough to get the community day with that sunny weather that boosted the ground type Pokemon. And I think that is why I ended up seeing boosted numbers, was simply because Trapinch was weather boosted at that time. If it was not weather boosted, I think I would have a very similar experience as to what people were mentioning, where it was like 2 of the Trapinches, maybe 3 of them. But because I got fortunate enough to be in a weather boosted situation, I think I saw a little bit higher numbers than usual. But yeah, that's my experience of this. I want to know what you think about it. I know that there's going to be a lot of negativity, but that's okay. We're just trying to voice our opinions, get Niantic's attention so that we can try to improve it. So let me know, how was your Trapinch community day? Did you end up seeing a lower number of spawns? Did you end up seeing a lower number of Trapinches? Let me know in the comments section below. And if you do enjoy these types of videos, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, and I will see you next time. If you want to develop a deeper connection, I would highly recommend you to check out Patreon. We've got a lot of really cool things going on over there. Check out all of these supporters that we have. We are almost up to 100. We are also posting some special content, some behind the scenes work. And if that is the type of thing that interests you, I would highly recommend you to check it out.